The sand crawler rumbled across the dunes of 7 as Sung checked his instruments for the third time that hour. The readings were the same as always, boring, predictable, exactly how he liked it. He had been working alone at Research Outpost Theta for 8 months now, and the solitude suited him fine. Other people meant complications. The desert meant peace. He was about to turn the vehicle back toward the outpost when the sky exploded with light. Sung jerked his head up just in time to see a massive ship screaming through the atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. It was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and it was coming down fast. The ship's hull was decorated with intricate patterns that gleamed even through the flames. This was no mining vessel or cargo hauler. This was something important. The impact shook the ground 3 seconds later. A plume of sand and smoke rose into the air about 15 kilometers to the east. Sung sat frozen in his seat, his hands gripping the controls. Protocol was clear. He should report this immediately and wait for instructions. Getting involved with alien crashes was way above his pay grade. But his radio crackled with static. The sandstorm he had been tracking all morning was moving in faster than predicted. In another 20 minutes, communications would be impossible. By the time the storm cleared and help arrived, anyone alive in that wreckage would be dead. Sung cursed under his breath and turned the sand crawler toward the crash site. The journey took 40 minutes. The twin suns of 7 beat down mercilessly, and the temperature gauge on his dashboard climbed steadily toward 50 degrees Celsius. When he finally reached the wreckage, the sight made his stomach turn. The ship had broken into 4 major pieces, scattered across half a kilometer of sand. Smaller debris was everywhere. Bodies, too. They were, he realized. He had seen pictures during the mandatory briefings about first contact protocols. The Empire was powerful and ancient, and humanity had only established diplomatic relations with them 2 years ago. These aliens had 4 arms, elongated heads and skin that seemed to shimmer with an internal light, or at least it should have shimmered. The dead ones looked dull and gray. Sung moved through the wreckage carefully, checking for survivors. He found none in the first 2 sections. The third section had been the cargo hold, now torn open and emptied. But the fourth section, the one that looked like it had been the command deck, still had some structural integrity. He climbed through a jagged tear in the hull, his suit protecting him from the hot metal. Inside, emergency lights flickered weakly. More bodies. These ones looked like they had been guards or soldiers, based on their armor. And there, in what must have been the captain's chair, was someone different. She was taller than the others, and her skin still held a faint glow of deep blue and silver. Her elaborate clothing was torn and burned, but Sung could see it had once been magnificent. 4 arms hung limply and her breathing was shallow, but she was alive. Sung moved closer and checked her injuries as best he could. He was no doctor, especially not for alien biology, but he could see burns, cuts, and what looked like a bad head wound. His medical scanner beeped frantically, unable to make sense of her physiology. The readout simply said, "Critical. Immediate medical attention required." He looked around for a medical pod or stasis chamber, anything that might keep her alive. He found one, but it was crushed beyond repair. His emergency beacon was in the sand crawler. He could call for help and hope someone arrived before she died. Then the first gust of wind hit, carrying a wall of sand with it. The storm was here. Sung ran back to his vehicle and grabbed the beacon. He set it to emergency broadcast and activated it. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. The magnetic interference from the storm was too strong. He would not be able to send a signal until it passed, and storms on 7 could last for days. He stood there in the rising wind, sand beginning to sting his exposed hands, and faced a choice. He could wait in his sand crawler with his supplies and water until the storm passed. The alien would die, but he would live, or he could try to save her. The nearest human settlement was 80 kilometers away, a 3-day walk if he pushed hard. His sand crawler could not make the journey. The storm would tear it apart, and the terrain between here and there was too rough. On foot, carrying her, with limited supplies in this heat, it was probably suicide. Sung looked back at the wreckage where the alien woman lay dying. He thought about his quiet life, his safe routine, his deliberate isolation. He thought about the person he used to be before he came to this desert planet, running from complications and connections. Then he started gathering supplies. He took every water container from the sand crawler, his thermal blankets, the emergency medical kit, a week's worth of food rations, though he knew they would be on strict rationing from the start. He fashioned a sled from a piece of the ship's hull, smooth and curved, that would glide across the sand. He worked frantically as the storm built around him. When he returned to the alien woman, she was barely breathing. He lifted her carefully, surprised by how light she was despite her height. Her 4 arms dangled awkwardly until he arranged them across her chest. He placed her on the sled and secured her with straps, then covered her with thermal blankets. As he pulled the sled out of the wreckage, her eyes opened. They were crystalline and multifaceted, like jewels, and they fixed on his face with surprising clarity. "Why?" she whispered in heavily accented standard, the common language of human space. "Why? Save. Enemy." Sung looked down at her and felt the full weight of what he was about to attempt. 3 days across a killing desert, probably for nothing. Probably they would both die out here. "You are not my enemy," he said quietly. "You are just someone who needs help." Her eyes closed again and Sung turned toward the distant settlement. The storm howled around him, reducing visibility to almost nothing. He pulled up his face mask, checked his compass, and took the first step. Behind him, the wreckage disappeared into the swirling sand. Ahead was only heat, exhaustion, and the very real possibility of death. But Sung had made his choice. He would cross this desert or he would die trying. The sand shifted under his boots as he walked into the storm. The storm lasted 18 hours. Sung found shelter behind a rock formation and waited it out, his body pressed against the alien woman on the sled to share warmth. The temperature dropped drastically at night, and even with the thermal blankets he could feel her shivering. He did not know if that was good or bad for her species. He only knew she was still alive. When dawn broke and the storm finally passed, Sung assessed their situation. He had used more water than planned, just keeping them both hydrated through the night. The alien woman, who he had started thinking of as the queen based on her elaborate clothing, was running a fever. Her skin, which had been a cool blue-silver, now pulsed with an angry red glow. He gave her water carefully, tilting her head and letting drops fall into her mouth. She swallowed reflexively but did not wake. Her breathing was ragged. He checked his compass, calculated the distance remaining, and started walking. The twin suns rose higher, and the temperature climbed with them. By midday, it was 62 degrees Celsius. Sung walked with his head down, one foot in front of the other, pulling the sled behind him. Sweat soaked through his clothes despite the cooling units in his suit. Every hour, he stopped to give the queen more water and wet down the thermal blankets to keep her cool. She woke briefly in the afternoon. Her crystalline eyes found his face, and this time there was more awareness in them. "You are human," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, my name is Sung. Save your strength." "I am Hei." She paused, breathing hard. "Why do you do this? Your kind and mine barely know each other." Sung knelt beside the sled and adjusted her blankets. "Does there need to be a reason?" "There is always a reason." Her 4 hands moved weakly as if trying to gesture. "Reward, political favor." "How about this reason?" Sung said. "I found someone dying and I could help. That is enough." Hei's eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she said something in her own language, too quiet for him to hear. Her eyes closed again, and she was unconscious once more. As the suns began to set, Sung found a place to make camp between 2 large rocks. He set up the thermal blankets as a tent and rationed out food. He ate 1 protein bar. It was supposed to be 2 meals, but he was trying to stretch their supplies. He was not hungry anyway. The night brought cold again, but also something worse. Sounds in the darkness. Clicking, scraping sounds that made the hair on the back of Sung's neck stand up. He turned on his flashlight and saw them. 6-legged creatures, each the size of a large dog, with armored shells and long tails tipped with barbs. He had read about them in the planetary briefings. Pack hunters, extremely aggressive, attracted to movement and heat. There were 4 of them circling the camp, their multifaceted eyes reflecting his light. Sung pulled out his mining laser, a tool designed for cutting rock, not fighting predators. His hands were shaking. The first charged. Sung fired, the beam catching it in the head. It shrieked and fell, but the others did not retreat. They charged together. He got one more, but the third was too fast. It leaped at him and Sung threw himself backward. The creature's barbed tail missed his chest by centimeters and smashed into the rock beside him. He rolled, fired again, and missed. The laser was overheating. One more shot, maybe 2, before it shut down. They circled for another attack. The 4th one had found the sled and was approaching Hase's unconscious form. Then the night filled with sound. It was not a scream or a roar. It was a frequency that Sung felt in his bones, a vibration that made his teeth ache and his vision blur. They froze, then scattered, fleeing into the darkness as fast as they could move. The sound stopped. Sung scrambled to the sled and found Hay conscious, all 4 of her hands pressed to her head, her skin flashing with colors he had never seen before. She was gasping for air. "What did you do?" he asked, his ears still ringing. "Sonic defense," she managed. "Our people can produce certain frequencies." She coughed and there was blood on her lips, blue blood. "But I am too weak, should not have." Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed completely. Sung checked her pulse, the one on her neck like humans, and found it fluttering irregularly. She had pushed herself too far. She had nearly killed herself to save him. He cleaned the blood from her face and gave her more water. He stayed awake the rest of the night, laser in hand, watching the darkness, but they did not return. The next day was harder. Sung's water supplies were running critically low. He had to make a choice. Give Hay her full ration and leave almost nothing for himself, or split it evenly and risk them both dying. He gave her the full ration. She needed it more than he did, and if she died, this whole journey meant nothing. By afternoon, he was stumbling. The heat was unbearable. His vision kept blurring. He pulled the sled up one more dune, then fell to his knees at the top. The settlement. He could see it in the distance. Maybe 30 kilometers. One more day, just one more. He tried to stand and could not. His legs would not respond. The world spun around him. He fell forward onto the sand, and the heat of it burned through his suit. Somewhere far away, he heard his name being called, Hay's voice. But that could not be right. She was unconscious. He was hallucinating. Then hands were on him. 4 hands pulling at him, rolling him over. Hay's face appeared above him, twisted with effort and pain. She was out of the sled. She was moving. How was she moving? She dragged him, step by agonizing step, toward a rock formation that offered shade. Sung tried to tell her to stop, that she was too injured, but no words would come out. She pulled him into the shadow and collapsed beside him. With shaking hands, she reached for his water container. It was empty. She looked at him, then at her own container. It was still half full. The water he had given her, rationed carefully. She lifted his head and poured water into his mouth. "No," he tried to say, "you need it." "You saved me," Hay whispered. "Now I save you. This is fair." She gave him half of her remaining water, then pulled out something from beneath her torn clothing. A small device, metallic and glowing. She stared at it for a long moment. "This is Royal Emergency Beacon," she said quietly. "I did not use it because those who attacked my ship, they will hear it too. They will come to finish what they started." She looked at Sung's pale face, his shallow breathing. "But if I do not call for help, we both die here. Her 4 hands moved across the device, entering coordinates. She pressed the activation button, and it pulsed with light. I have sent signal to my most trusted guard, she said. Captain Bora, I pray she is still loyal. I pray my enemies do not intercept. She lay down beside Sung in the shade. Now we wait, we hope, and we trust. Sung's hand found hers. Their fingers intertwined, human and alien, 5 fingers and 4, holding on in the scorching desert as the signal flew through space toward an uncertain rescue. Above them, the twin suns blazed on, indifferent to their struggle. The sound of engines woke Sung. He opened his eyes to see 3 ships descending from the sky, sleek and fast, nothing like the massive vessel that had crashed. They landed in a triangle formation around the rock shelter, and armed soldiers poured out. The lead soldier, a tall woman with deep purple skin and silver armor, rushed forward. Her 4 eyes went wide when she saw Hay lying on the sand. My queen! She dropped to her knees beside them, her 4 hands moving quickly to check Hay's condition. Then she noticed Sung, and her hand went to her weapon. Human, what have you done to her? Bora, Hay's weak voice stopped the soldier. He saved me, he carried me across the desert, protected me. Without him, I would be dead. Bora looked between them, clearly confused, but she nodded. Medical team, now, she turned back to Hay. We must get you to the medical station immediately. The council believes you are dead. Prince Dalho has claimed. I know what Dalho has claimed, Hay said. Her voice was getting stronger. He was behind the attack, I am certain of it. 2 medical officers came forward with floating stretchers. They loaded Hay onto one, then hesitated over Sung. Bora made a sharp gesture. Take the human too. The Queen has declared him under her protection. The trip to the orbital station passed in a blur for Sung. He was given water, food, and medical treatment. The doctors were fascinated by his dehydration and heat damage, treating it as an interesting puzzle. One of them mentioned that most humans would have died in half the time he survived. He did not feel particularly special. He just felt tired. They put him in a recovery room and told him to rest. He slept for 16 hours straight. When he woke, there was a guard outside his door. Not hostile exactly, but definitely watchful. A medical officer came to check on him, declared him fit, and said, "The Queen requests your presence." Sung was led through the station's corridors. It was beautiful in a way that was completely alien to him. The walls seemed to glow from within, and the architecture followed curves and angles that made no sense to his human eyes but somehow felt right. Others stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. They brought him to a large chamber with a view of 7 below. Hay was there, standing by the window. She had been cleaned and treated, and her skin glowed with healthy blue and silver light again. She wore simpler clothing than before, but it was still clearly royal. She turned as he entered, and her 4 hands gestured in what he had learned was a sign of respect. Sung, you look better. So do you. He felt awkward suddenly. In the desert, things had been simple, life or death, survival. But here, in this grand chamber, he was very aware that she was royalty and he was just a geologist. I am glad you are recovering. Thanks to you. She moved closer. I have been speaking with Bora and my advisors. They have explained to me the human concept of thanks and payment for services rendered. I want to offer you. I do not want payment, Sung interrupted. I did not help you for money or reward. Hay's crystalline eyes studied him. I know, that is why what I must say next is complicated. She took a breath. In my culture, there is an ancient law. When someone saves a royal's life through personal sacrifice, risking their own life, they become Ara. It means sole guardian. It is a sacred bond. Okay, Sung said slowly. What does that mean exactly? It means, Hay seemed to be struggling for words. It means you are bound to me and I to you. In our tradition, this bond is formalized through marriage. Sung stared at her. For a long moment he could not process the words. Marriage? You want to marry me? It is not want, it is duty, honor. You saved me, Sung. For 3 days you carried me across hell itself. You gave me your water when you had none. You almost died for me. By our oldest laws we are already bound. The ceremony would simply make it official. But Sung felt like the ground was falling away beneath him. We barely know each other. We are different species. I am nobody. I am just a guy who studies rocks. You are a queen. I know, Hay's voice was quiet. I know this is strange for you. Your culture does not have this tradition. But in those 3 days I saw your character more clearly than I have seen most people in my entire life. You are kind, stubborn, you do not give up. You see someone in need and help them without thought of reward. Her 4 hands clasped together. These are the qualities my people value most. Sung walked to the window and looked down at the desert planet below. Somewhere down there was the path they had walked together. And if I say no, then I will not force you. Hay joined him at the window. You would be free to return to your life. I would make sure you were honored and rewarded, but the bond would remain, at least in my heart. We do not give such bonds lightly. This is insane, Sung said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, Hay agreed, it is. Before either could say more, Bora entered quickly. My queen, forgive the interruption, but we have a situation. Prince Dalho has issued a formal challenge. He says you are compromised by human influence and unfit to rule. He demands you return to Prime immediately to face the High Council. Hay's skin flashed with angry reds. Of course he does. He thinks I am weak from my injuries. There is more. Bora glanced at Sung uncomfortably. He has broadcast his challenge publicly. He specifically mentions the human who carried you across the desert. He says it proves you have abandoned values. He makes what should be honorable sound like shame, Hay said quietly. How many support him? The military remains loyal to you, but many in the council are uncertain. If you do not return and face this challenge, you will lose support. Bora hesitated. My queen, perhaps it would be wise to distance yourself from the human, at least publicly, until. No, Hay's voice was firm. I will not hide what Sung did. I will not pretend it did not happen to make politics easier. She turned to Sung. But Bora is right about one thing. This situation is dangerous. If you stay near me, you will be drawn into a political war. You could be hurt, used as a weapon against me. Sung looked at Hay, really looked at her. 3 days ago she had been a dying stranger. Now she was asking him to turn his entire life upside down, to step into a world of alien politics and danger. The smart thing would be to walk away, to go back to his quiet, safe life in the desert. But he remembered her voice in the darkness, asking why he saved her. He remembered her dragging him to shade when she could barely move. He remembered the feeling of her hand in his as they waited together under the scorching suns. I need time to think, he said finally. Hay nodded. Of course, I leave for Prime tomorrow. You have until then to decide. She reached out and took his hand with one of hers. Whatever you choose, Sung, know that I am grateful. You gave me my life back. That is a debt I can never fully repay. That night, alone in his room, Sung could not sleep. He paced back and forth, his mind racing. Bora came to see him late in the evening. She stood in the doorway and studied him. You care for her, Bora said. It was not a question. I barely know her. You carried her across a desert. You gave her your water. You almost died for her. Bora stepped inside. I have served Queen Hay for 10 years. I have never seen her look at anyone the way she looks at you. This is crazy, Sung said. I am just a human. She is a queen. I do not belong in her world. No one belongs anywhere until they choose to, Bora said. The question is not whether you belong. The question is what do you want? Not as a geologist, not as a human in a strange place. As a man, what do you want? After she left, Sung stood at the window for a long time, watching the stars, thinking about deserts and choices and the strange paths life takes. Sung found Hay on the observation deck just before dawn. She stood alone, watching Seven rotate slowly below them. She did not turn when he approached, but he knew she was aware of him. "I spent my whole life avoiding complications," he said. "After my parents died, I learned it was easier to be alone. No connections meant no pain. I came to Seven because it was empty, just me and the rocks and the silence." He stepped up beside her. "Then I found you." Hay finally looked at him, her crystalline eyes reflecting the starlight. "I could go back to that life," Sung continued. "Safe, predictable, alone. Or I could take a chance on something completely insane with someone who moved me in ways I did not expect." He held out his hand. "I want to see where this goes, if you will have me." For a moment Hay did not move. Then all four of her hands came up, taking his one hand gently. "You understand what you are choosing. The danger, the politics, the hatred from those who fear change." "I carried you across a desert," Sung said. "I think I can handle some politics." Despite everything, Hay laughed. It was a beautiful sound. The journey to Prime took 3 days through faster-than-light travel. Sung spent the time learning everything he could about culture, history, and politics. His teachers were Chancellor Wu, a stern older who seemed perpetually disappointed in him, and Elder Jin, a wise advisor who had served 3 generations of the royal family. "You must understand," Wu said during one lesson, "Prince Dalho is not just ambitious. He is dangerous. He believes humans are inferior beings who threaten our racial purity. Your very existence beside the Queen gives him ammunition." "Then why are you helping me?" Sung asked. Wu's expression softened slightly. "Because I have served the royal family for 40 years, and I have never seen Queen Hay look as alive as she does when she speaks of you. That matters more than politics." Elder Jin taught him about the trial of legitimacy that Dalho had called for. "It is ancient law," she explained. "Any member of the royal family can challenge the monarch's right to rule if they believe the monarch has betrayed core values. The High Council will judge, but the trial is broadcast to all citizens. Public opinion matters as much as the council's vote." "What do I need to do?" Sung asked. "Tell the truth," Jin said simply. "Respect honesty above all else. Do not try to be eloquent or political, just be yourself." When they arrived at Prime, Sung's breath caught. The planet was incredible. Massive crystalline spires rose from bioluminescent forests that glowed in waves of color. Cities hung suspended between the spires on bridges that seemed too delicate to support them but held firm. The entire planet seemed to pulse with light and life. They landed at the royal palace and immediately Sung felt the hostility. Nobles and officials stared at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disgust. Whispers followed him through the corridors. Human. Contamination. Weakness. The trial was held in the Grand Chamber, a massive hall that could hold thousands. Sung stood beside Hay on a raised platform. Across from them stood Prince Dalho, a tall with dark green skin and eyes that glittered with ambition. The Chief Justice of the High Council, an ancient named counselor, called the chamber to order. "Prince Dalho, you have challenged Queen Hay's legitimacy. State your case." Dalho stepped forward, his voice carrying through the chamber. "I charge that our queen has abandoned values. She was rescued by a human, a member of a species we barely know. She has formed a aura bond with this human, elevating him to a position of influence. She has allowed herself to be weakened by emotional attachment to an inferior being. She is no longer fit to lead our great empire." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some seemed to agree, others looked uncertain. Counselor turned to Hay. "How do you answer these charges?" Hay rose and her voice was steady and strong. "I answer that Prince Dalho knows nothing of value. He speaks of strength but shows only pride. He speaks of purity but shows only fear." She gestured to Sung. "This human saved my life when I was dying in the desert. He asked for nothing in return. He nearly died himself protecting me. By our most ancient laws, he earned the right of aura. To reject him would be to reject our own traditions." "He is human," Dalho shouted. They are not like us. They are primitive, emotional, weak. He carried me 80 kilometers across a scorching desert, Hay interrupted. I saw his strength firsthand. Did you know, cousin, that humans can survive in conditions that would kill us in hours? That their determination borders on the insane? That this particular human gave me his water rations while dehydrating himself? Bora stepped forward then. I have evidence to present. She held up a data crystal. This contains the communications logs from the ship that attacked Queen Hay's vessel. The orders came from someone using Prince Dalho's personal encryption codes. The chamber erupted. Dalho's skin flashed through angry reds and blacks. Fabricated. This is a desperate attempt. The logs have been by 3 independent analysts, Bora continued calmly. Prince Dalho arranged the attack. He tried to murder the queen to seize power. The mood in the chamber shifted. Counselors were standing now, shouting questions. Dalho was shouting denials. It was chaos. Counselor's voice cut through it all. Order, we will hear from the human, she looked at Sung. What do you say to these accusations against your character, that you are weak, inferior? Sung stood slowly. His heart was pounding. Thousands of eyes were on him, most of them hostile. He thought about Wu's lessons, Jin's advice. Just tell the truth. I do not know if I am weak or inferior by your standards, he began. His voice was quiet, but in the sudden silence everyone could hear him. I'm just a geologist. I study rocks. I have no political power, no wealth, no special abilities. He looked at Hay. But I know what I saw in that desert. I saw someone who refused to give up even when she was dying. I saw someone who used the last of her strength to save me from predators, nearly killing herself to do it. I saw someone who gave me her water when I was dehydrated, even though she needed it just as much. He turned to face the crowd. Your queen did not survive because she is powerful. She survived because she refused to let others suffer. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing I have ever seen. The chamber was silent now. Every eye was fixed on him. You call me inferior because I am human, Sung continued. Maybe I am by your standards, but I know this. When I found Queen Hay dying, I did not think about politics or species or what I would gain. I just thought about saving someone who needed help. If that makes me weak or primitive, then I am proud to be weak. I am proud to be primitive. He sat down. Hay's hand found his, her fingers intertwining with his. The voting took 3 hours. In the end, the High Council voted 8-3 to uphold Hay's legitimacy. Prince Dalho was stripped of his titles and arrested pending trial for attempted murder. The charges would take months to fully process, but he was finished. That evening, the royal palace prepared for the coronation ceremony. Hay would be formally crowned as full empress, her position secured. And as part of that ceremony, she and Sung would undergo the aura bonding ritual. Sung stood in his ceremonial clothing, a blend of human and styles that Elder Jin had helped design. He was terrified. He was excited. He had no idea what he was doing. He was exactly where he wanted to be. The ceremony was beautiful in ways Sung could not fully understand. There were songs in frequencies he could barely hear, lights that danced in patterns that made his eyes water, and words spoken in ancient that needed no translation, because the meaning was clear in the melody. When it came time for the bonding, Hay took his hand with all 4 of hers. They spoke the traditional words translated for him. I bind my soul to yours. I walk your path as you walk mine. I am yours as you are mine. The crowd erupted in celebration. Not everyone was happy. Sung could see the angry faces, the disapproving looks, but there were also smiles, cheers, acceptance. Later, alone in their chambers, Hay asked him, "Do you regret it, this choice you have made?" Sung pulled her close. I spent years alone in a desert, searching for something valuable buried beneath the sand. I did not know I would find it walking toward me across those same dunes. Hay's crystalline eyes shimmered. You have a poet's soul, Sung. I have a geologist's soul, he corrected. I just know a rare treasure when I see one. 6 months passed and Sung discovered that being the consort to an empress was nothing like he had imagined. It was harder. It was stranger. It was better. He learned to navigate the labyrinth of politics, where every gesture had meaning and every word could carry 3 different interpretations. He learned which nobles supported He genuinely and which only pretended. He learned to spot assassination plots before they developed and to turn enemies into reluctant allies through patience and honesty. But he also insisted on maintaining his identity. He was not just the human consort. He was still Sung, geologist. He established an exchange program between human and scientists, focusing on environmental studies and resource management. His work on adapting human survival techniques for colonies in harsh environments saved hundreds of lives in the first 3 months alone. He respected this. She never asked him to give up who he was. Instead, she found ways to blend their worlds. She learned to drink coffee, though she complained it tasted like burnt dirt. He learned to meditate using techniques which involved harmonizing his breathing with specific light frequencies. It gave him headaches at first, but eventually he found peace in it. They found moments of genuine intimacy amid the chaos of ruling an empire. She would read him poetry from ancient texts, her 4 hands gesturing in rhythm with the words. He would share human music with her, and they discovered she loved jazz, the improvisation reminding her of ceremonial songs. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing, building a partnership that went deeper than politics or duty. But the universe had other plans. It was Ambassador Min from Earth who brought the news. He arrived at the palace with a grim expression and a classified data packet. Sung and He received him in the private council chamber, along with General Young Ho from the Colonial Defense Force and Chancellor Wu. "We have a problem," Min said without preamble. He activated a holographic display showing a star map. "Long-range scouts have detected an armada from the Empire. 60 warships headed this direction. They will reach space in 3 weeks. He's skin flashed through concerned colors. They have been aggressive neighbors, but they have never directly threatened us. Why now? Because of him. General Young Ho pointed at Sung. Or rather, because of what he represents. The sea-human cooperation as a threat. They have issued an ultimatum. The Empire must exile all humans, including the Queen's consort, or they will consider it an act of aggression. Sung felt his stomach drop. They are threatening war because I exist here. Because of what your presence symbolizes, Min corrected. 2 powerful species working together. They have spent centuries maintaining a balance of power in this region. Our alliance threatens that balance. Wu's 4 hands clasped together in a gesture of deep thought. If we exile the humans to avoid war, we show weakness. Other empires will see that we can be threatened and controlled. But if we fight, thousands will die. There is another option, He said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. We formalize the alliance, not just cultural exchange and scientific cooperation. A full military and economic alliance between the Empire and the Human Colonial Federation. We show that threatening one of us means facing both of us. The room fell silent. It was a radical proposal. Humans had only known each other for 2 years. An alliance of that magnitude was unprecedented. It would be political suicide, Wu said. Half the council already fears human influence. This would confirm their worst fears. Or it could be the beginning of something greater, He countered. Think about it. Our 2 species complement each other. Humans have adaptability and determination, have technology and resources. Together, we would be formidable. Min looked at General Young Ho. The general shrugged. Earth leadership would support it. We have been looking for strong allies in this region, but the question is whether your people will accept it. Let me talk to them, Sung said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The council, let me make the case for why this alliance makes sense. Wu looked skeptical. No offense, but you are part of the problem in their eyes. Exactly, Sung said. Which means I have nothing to lose. They already distrust me. But maybe, just maybe, if I am honest with them about what humans can offer, some will listen. The summit was scheduled for 1 week later. Representatives from both the High Council and the Human Colonial Federation gathered in the Grand Chamber. Sung had never been more nervous in his life. He stood at the podium and looked out at the assembled officials. Some faces were friendly, many were not. He took a breath and began. 6 months ago, I was nobody, just a geologist studying rocks on a desert planet. Then I found Queen Hay dying in the sand, and I made a choice to help her. That choice brought me here. He paused. Many of you see me as a threat, an outsider, someone who does not belong. You are right. I do not belong here by birth or by tradition. I belong here by choice. He activated his own holographic display, showing images of the joint scientific projects. In 6 months, human and researchers have accomplished things neither species could do alone. We have developed new terraforming techniques. We have created medical treatments that work across species barriers. We have built bridges where there were only empty spaces. Words, a counselor called out. You speak of bridges and cooperation, but what happens when interests conflict? What happens when humans want the same resources, the same territory? We talk, Sung said simply. We compromise. We remember that partnership is stronger than competition. He looked directly at the counselor who had spoken. You ask what happens when we disagree. I disagree with my wife every day. She thinks coffee tastes terrible. I think meditation music sounds like someone torturing a synthesizer, but we make it work because we respect each other. A few laughs rippled through the chamber. Even the hostile counselor cracked a smile. They want us to be afraid of alliance, Sung continued. They want us to believe that different means dangerous, but I carried your queen across a desert. I nearly died for her. She nearly died saving me from predators. We are not the same species. We are not even from the same part of space. But when it mattered, we were there for each other. That is what alliance means. Ambassador Min spoke next, detailing the practical benefits of formal alliance. General Young Ho discussed military coordination. Chancellor Wu, surprisingly, spoke in favor of the proposal, his support swaying several undecided counselors. The vote took 2 days. In the end, it passed by a narrow margin. The Empire and the Human Colonial Federation would form a formal alliance. It would be called the Accord of Two Suns, named for the twin sons of Seven where it all began. When news of the alliance reached the Empire, their response was immediate. The Armada stopped its advance. They requested diplomatic talks instead of war. The show of unity had worked. Neither humans nor were easy targets anymore. A year after the alliance was formalized, Hei and Sung returned to Seven. They stood at the crash site where everything had begun. A memorial had been built here, honoring those who died in the attack on Hei's ship. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Hei asked. If you had not investigated the crash, if you had waited for proper rescue teams. I think about it sometimes, Sung admitted. But then I realize that wondering about what could have been is pointless. What matters is what is. Hei's 4 hands took his one, a gesture that had become natural to both of them. And what is? What is that I found the most stubborn, brave, complicated woman in the galaxy, Sung said, and somehow convinced her to marry me. I believe I convinced you, Hei corrected with amusement. You were quite reluctant at first. They stood together as the twin suns set, painting the sky in amber and violet. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, beautiful in its harshness. This was where their story had begun. This was where everything had changed. What do we do now? Sung asked. Hei leaned against him, a gesture she had learned from human customs. Whatever we choose, together. 10 years later, in a medical facility on Prime, Hei gave birth to a daughter. The doctors had said it was impossible. Human and biology was too different. But nature, as Sung had learned in his years as a geologist, had a way of finding solutions when conditions were right. The baby had her mother's crystalline eyes and her father's five-fingered hands. She had bioluminescent skin that pulsed with soft colors and human resilience that made her stronger than infants. She was something new, something impossible, something beautiful. They named her Rang, a word from an ancient human language that meant love. As Sung held his daughter for the first time, with He beside him and their extended family of humans and crowding around to see this miracle, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. A crashed ship, a scorching desert, a choice to help a stranger. How could he have known that one decision would change not just his life, but the future of two civilizations? Rang opened her eyes and looked at him, and in that moment Sung understood something fundamental. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons or even adaptability. It was the stubborn, foolish, beautiful belief that every life mattered, that every person was worth saving, that compassion was not weakness but the strongest force in the universe. He had saved an alien queen across a scorching desert. She had sought his hand. Together, they had built bridges across stars. And now they held the future in their arms, a child who belonged to both worlds and neither, who would grow up knowing that differences were not barriers but opportunities. The twin suns of Seven were visible through the medical facility's windows, distant but still shining. Sung smiled. Some journeys ended where they began, but the best journeys never really ended at all. They just became the beginning of something new.